Well, everybody's heard about the bird. The bird's a winner, well, a bird.
Grown men watch this shit?
A podcast about indie wrestling.
Bird is a winner, well, a bird. Well, a bird is a winner, well, a bird. The bird's a winner, well, a bird.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 21 of the illustrious show known as...
Grown men watch this shit?
Yep,
Yeah.
we still
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
We still do. And today I'm quite excited. We have another newsworthy,
We're
action-packed
excited. You're not just you,
episode.
man. I'm also excited.
We're all excited.
Yeah,
we,
there you go.
we have quite a bit coming up. I'm going to be shooting to a past Chris conversation that I had with my cousin Ben a couple of weeks ago, recapping some shows that I went to in Melbourne, Australia. But before that, both Jeremy and I are tremendously excited to introduce a dude that we've been trying to get on this show for a little while now. It's another one of our fantastic wrestle art editions, which I don't know if anyone else in the world of podcasting cares about this, but I do, and I know Jeremy does. So we're going to have
I'm sure
fun.
there is definitely a niche market for this.
I think so. I'd like to think so. But without any further ado, I'd like to introduce a very talented man. His wrestling art is one of the most unique that I've personally found in the Instagram land on the @JediJackYeti handle. A dude whose work is like... We'll get more into the actual specifics of the work. Let's just jump into this.
This is one of your best introductions ever.
Yeah, fuck it. Welcome to the show, Mr.
Hey.
Zackson Zorn. How's it going, dude?
It's great. I'm glad we could finally get together.
Yeah, man. Totally stoked to have you on. Further to my extended bullshit intro, I wanted to definitely put over your work, man. I really encourage everyone to check it out at JediJackYeti, as we mentioned on the Instagram. But it's like so cool because it's got like a gothic, almost etching kind of vibe to it. Definite, like almost like Catholic religious art kind of imagery, but like with wrestling shit. Like, it's fucking awesome. I love it, man. And I can't wait to talk to you, find out a bit more about your practice, more about you, and what sort of makes your work what it is, you know?
Yeah.
First,
yeah.
we gotta say, we're both, me and Chris, proud owners of his artwork.
Sure.
He was nice enough to create some prints and ship them our way. So yeah, amazing work. I can't put it over enough, but yes, please go on. Tell us more about yourself, Mr. Zorn.
Yeah, I think I even tried to scam Jeremy into 2 stickers instead of 1. And I was worried I had offended you.
No, by no means. It's hard to tell over text. I was like, we say 2, but I only said 1. I just want to make sure we're 100% on board, above board, clear as day.
Yeah, that $3. It comes in hand.
For sure, brother.
I'm so indecisive sometimes. Whenever I order them, which I told you, I always order 2 because I know if I only get 1, I'll be pretty worried about correct placement.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, well, this sketchbook's almost filled up, so I shouldn't put this sticker on it. I should wait till I get a new book to put this sticker on that so I can enjoy it longer. It becomes a whole to-do, so I remedy that by just buying 2 of everything.
I love it. That's a good practice.
Pragmatic. I like it. Yeah.
I've got a sticker sort of wall at my workstation next to my computer. It's just sort of like organically happened to where I just put all my stickers on that in like a sweet punk rock kind of fashion.
Nice.
So it's not a lot of doubt on where it's going to go. Boom, that is my sticker place. I mean, what are the other kind of places that are go-tos for stickers? I don't know. I'm not that much of a sticker guy, apart from just going on my sweet wall. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
I have them on drawing pads. I keep a bunch of my cards stick on stuff that looks boring, like lamp.
You're adding art to the world. I love it.
Yeah, as any good street artist would say, it's making the world colorful.
Indeed.
Hell yeah.
Like a good Samaritan, really.
Yeah.
So, how did you decide to meld these two worlds of, gothic or religious imagery and then professional wrestling? I know for me, wrestling is a religious experience a lot of the time, so maybe that's where the motivation was.
Yeah. So to get it, it'll come back around to it. But I've always been a fan of wrestling, and I've always been a fan of orienting the art you make or anyone makes into what they appreciate and enjoy. And I started this graphic novel, about 150 pages. It's all written. The pages are all drawn, and kind of misfit superheroes. And one of the characters was a wrestler. And he got in a car crash south of the border with a chicken truck, and when, of course, it's a kind of superhero narrative, so that of course he has wings when he comes out of the car crash, like big angel wings, like gruesome.
Hell yeah.
And then, so on and so forth, and his gimmick was he was the angel, and he eventually got one of his wings. I believe I had it written that his right wing got like badly damaged in a cage match.
As it does.
For a love, so even though he had this power of flight, he could only fly in clockwise circles.
Yeah.
And then through working like that character, eventually I was like, these other characters are fun, but I kind of just like drawing the wrestlers to a degree.
Yeah.
Or the wrestling character to a degree. So, circumstances of life happened, and my wife had a daughter, and it's my daughter, but she had her. And you really can't, because the graphic novel is going to be watercolor, and you can't, any time sensitive like medium like that in regards to like painting it, and it's drying time and going wet into wet or wet into dry, like you can't have a tot running around at the same time and do that.
I can imagine.
Yeah, so then I picked up the pen, and I'd doodled in pen before, of course, but I'd always primarily enjoyed drawing to a degree anyway, but never like intensely hit something with pen. So I started working with the pen, of the ease of drag and drop, and you're just done. You make a mark, it's there, it's dry. You can pick it up and go change a diaper, and you don't have to worry about it. So you could kind of work in little like 5-minute stints, and then just pound away at something whenever you have a chance to chip away at it. So I started primarily doing just the wrestling images, and I think I'm a big fan of like Renaissance art, Gothic art, even the medieval stuff. I love to like walk to it before they've like figured out perspective and such, their figures.
So much fun.
They're funky little Barbie doll bodies and stuff, and like
it all like 2D, so just whack looking. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I think pulling, and I love working with a figure. So I think pulling, just that's where a lot of my inspiration comes from, and the advent of art, especially around the Renaissance, and I'd say like up until the Enlightenment or past it, like the church is paying all the artists, so all the arts of Christ and religious iconography.
Yeah, and like the Medici family commissions and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So and if you're a fan of that art of that time period, like it's like Jesus and angels and demons are gonna creep in no matter what. Not to say that I think I have a relative understanding of that. I grew up in a fairly religious home as well. But I can't, I can't necessarily like place it as to like when it clicked, or the idea that kind of the overarching idea of a lot of my work contains. But one day in a dream or whatever, it just kind of clicked that like this is all. And I got a graduate degree in art as well, so I was very much so forced always to explain myself as to like, well, you have to explain why you're drawing this. It's not good enough just to draw it or paint it. There has to be a reason, and you have to have at least 5 references. That kind of mentality.
Yeah, I get that. I can relate. I came up from the same background. Yeah. I mean, it's good in a way that it sort of gets you thinking about stuff a little bit more than you potentially otherwise would. But yeah.
And I think a lot of that information is, if any artists like ask themselves, well, like, why am I doing this? Then I think it's there. It's just, if no one asks you, then you don't necessarily, you draw it because you like to draw it. That's why you're drawing it.
Yeah.
Most of the time when I start doodling stuff, it's like literally, or drawing, just coming out of my hands. I'm not even, it's just happening. So I hard to come up with, why am I doing this? I don't know. My hands told me to.
And it's which I'm getting further into now, but it's like a real kind of like a surrealist idea of like, what are you doing? And what's your brain doing inside of there? Like, like, let's figure that out. Let's get funky. But I don't like one day I kind of unintentionally figured out that I was like, this is what all this is it's an intersection of the Christ story with wrestlers, and I think to understand wrestling is to understand Christ, and to understand the Christ story is also very much so to understand wrestling.
100%. I think it's an excellent metaphor. Like, I mean, there's so many parallels between the stories, and ultimately, I guess, like, both of these things are about good versus evil, right? So it's like, there's so many parallels in that way.
Yeah, I think on that level, there is that. But for me, my hang up growing up, going to church and stuff, was always the idea of like predestination. It's like, well, why do I have to choose anything if it's already determined that I'll choose it or not choose it or whatever? So, many a teenage nights spent tossing and turning, thinking about that, flopping it in my mind. And it's like you have Christ as this character who is told by his father, it's like, you're going to die on the cross, and you're going to make a physical sacrifice for all mankind, and that's what's going to happen. But you still have to feel the physical pain of that and go through the physical suffering of that. But the end is determined already. Yeah. So do all this, but the ending's determined. And that's like, if there's any contemporary parallel to that, then it's wrestling.
Hell yeah.
And it's wrestlers. Like they are, and I know I've told wrestlers this before, and sometimes they kind of get a little wigged out by the idea that some guys out there comparing them to Christ, but
they're hella idolatrized.
These are women and men who are going out there physically sacrificing themselves for the masses, sometimes safely, sometimes not safely, and sometimes things happen. Risking bodily harm for a predetermined, predestined end.
Yeah.
Function.
Damn.
Definitely. I mean, especially like looking at some of the deathmatch stuff that Jeremy and I watch from time to time. It's like so literal.
Yeah, and I think it's, and then like from there, I was like, oh, well, that's, I ran it by a few friends. It was like, what do you think about this? Like, does it track? Are you picking it up? Like, can you understand that? And everybody I talked to, my art friends, their wife included, and my sister, it was like, oh yeah, totally. And my wife is a relative fan. She's not super hardcore, but she watches the big ones and watches whatever I have on. My sister used to be a fan, but she's not so much anymore. But she could still track with that idea. So I was like, this is something I probably should, explore more. I enjoy the idea. I enjoy the visuals of it. Enjoy the nature of it. And then on top of that, I think any artist working within, within a realm of reference where they're referencing two things that there is a event or a story to relate to any event or story that happens in real life it's a good thing to start referencing. Yeah. Because that's the way the Bible was written. In most religious texts, it's like your dog dies. Here's a story you should read. You had a bad day. Here's a story you should read. You're wealthy. Here's a story you should read. So on and so forth. It's meant to be relative to anyone at any time. And I think wrestling's the exact same way. It has, and now as it hangs around longer and longer and gets more and more popular, there's.
Well, we still got you there, Jackson. Cool, you dropped out there for a sec. Sorry. But you're back. We're all right.
Okay.
Please continue.
I just feel like, even within wrestling, there's an event or a character to relate to almost every situation that we kind of encounter.
I never really considered it really, now that I think about it, like, dude, the whole Jesus storyline is such a fucking baby face, like the ultimate baby face progression.
Yeah.
Like, he sacrifices himself, then he literally has a redemption storyline where
he retires and then comes back.
That's ridiculous.
Doing the whole thing for the people.
Mm-hmm. And I think we could, in the end,
the dog running.
Yeah, we got a dog running. Hang on a second. Yeah. I'm going to grab these dogs. Please continue. One moment.
Yes, sir. Go.
I think from there, you can just kind of break it down even further into like singular stories, like Adam and Eve getting kicked out of the garden, or Jacob. I mean, it's in the Bible, like Jacob wrestles the angel. So kind of with that overarching idea of Christ and wrestlers and self-sacrifice, once you start kind of digging through the text, you can definitely find like other stories that, pretty tightly relate to things or events that have happened in wrestling. And I think it's all good. They're both good mediums of storytelling. So there's scripts for everything, and you can kind of weave in and out of the scripts. Like currently I haven't really produced any work on it, but I've been tossing the idea around of like putting someone over in a more like classic wrestling sense where you're about to go out of the business and you pick someone to, quote unquote, retire you. And thinking about that, that's what Christ and his posse of apostles just went around doing. Like,
I like to say the stable of apostles.
Yeah.
They're the 12 horsemen.
Yeah. They found like lepers, poor people, taxmen, just finding these heels of the world and putting them over. And then, and then even before, so I've kind of drawn a parallel to and I think it happens a few times in the Bible, like Christ washing people's feet and stuff. And to me, there's like a parallel to that of like washing someone's feet versus putting them over. And even like before, which I just found this out this week, like before Christ was crucified the night before, like I think before they ate, he like washed all the apostles' feet and put them over in a sense before he departed.
Yeah, because they held him in such high regard, and he's doing this for them. Yeah. It's like, it's the ultimate sign of respect.
Yeah, totally. So I think there's just a lot. If you look at the Bible through the lens of a wrestling fan, or you look at wrestling through the lens of a hardcore Christian or hardcore religious person, then there's so many ties to one another, and and then and drawing works well too, and painting like we do, because there's even within religion there's layers of like gimmicks and merchandise and like stuff. There's stuff to kind of back up the beliefs and ideas, and then there's even like levels of stuff. Is it, like, is it a relic that's a part of Christ, or is it a relic that Christ touched, or is it something that of someone's that Christ touched them? And I kind of like to think about that with like wrestling gear and prints and shirts too. It's like, is it Macho Man's crown, or is it a replica of the crown, or is it a figurine, or is it like an official WWE print, or is it a bootleg print, or like it just goes on and on. The kind of worship of wrestling in general, and the types of items you can attach to yourself, which I think is similar to a lot of religions, where you can, if you need it on a keychain, then there's a keychain for that.
Well, it's almost like when you go to a wrestling show and you end up buying merch, or even say purchasing from the concession stand. It's like you're tithing for the fucking wrestling. You're paying. You're offering something up. Actually, with religious thing, I didn't really think about this before, but I wanted to ask your opinion on it. When characters such as the Undertaker or Raven use like a crucifixion imagery, how did that go over with you personally?
I loved it. I mean, I don't like. I think it's a funny thing, because out of context, it's like we tend to forget. I feel like, especially when we look at wrestling and even sports in general. I think outside of the realms of a religious institute, we tend to forget religion to a degree. I remember when Taker crucified Stephanie McMahon on the big Taker symbol, and even I just did it. Like, he crucified her on a Taker symbol. Like, no, he didn't. He crucified her on a cross. Like,
we're not bullshitting anyone here.
You can say it's
a gimmicked cross. That's all we know.
Yeah, like they can say it's a Taker symbol. It's like, no, it's not. It's a cross. And then there's like, the whole, even with Taker, I mean, it's kind of pretty in depth with him, because it's like his brother Kane comes back, and it's like, well, how many people are picking up that motif or that kind of reference to the Bible?
Yeah, 100%.
And I like more recently with I don't even remember what it was at, but like the Finn Balor Lesnar, it's pretty common in wrestling in general, just like, it's the David versus Goliath match. And they straight up say it all the time, but I always wonder, like, David versus Goliath has kind of become such a metaphor that, like, it's almost detached from the Bible. Like, when someone says David versus Goliath, like, my mind doesn't immediately go to the Bible. It just goes to, like, big guy versus small guy, or big girl versus girl.
JR used to always throw out, it's the proverbial something, like, referring to Proverbs. I'm like, that, like, you don't realize how much they throw religious references in there until you actually take a second back. Oh yeah, fuck, that's directly from Proverbs.
And I was like, and so that's like a big one that's there, and like, of course, the Raven stuff as Outcast, and like Sandman stuff in ECW, it's there. I think Sandman
pissed off Kurt Angle, man. He
was
sick of it.
Yeah, and it's theatrics. It's I have a buddy I'm gonna get to mix something together for me, but I just want to visually see like Passion of the Christ mixed with some like old school, like New Japan hardcore matches. Just kind of like a 5-minute clip of just that movie mixed with hardcore matches.
I could definitely envision Atsushi Onita of FMW fame being Jesus Christ during the.
Yeah, I don't know anything about video editing, so I kind of just have to play with it in my head and picture it. But I feel like it could be interesting, and at some point the two would just meld together and just be like, oh, it's the same thing, because it is.
So many parallels there, actually, because Onita was all about like his suffering for the people through FMW. It was basically his tribulations and the pain and the scars and the bleeding and the electrocutions and the barbed wire, and that's actually quite spot on there now that I think about it.
Yeah, and like the barbed wire, parallels Crown of Thorns. It's all if you.
Oh, that'd be so cool as a drawing. Holy shit.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things like if you're looking for it, then you see it a lot. Kind of like if you're looking for a specific number in your day-to-day life, all of a sudden it's popping up everywhere. But even like, because I don't have as much time to watch wrestling as much anymore, so I'm primarily watching stuff on the network, and then every now and then I got the New Japan subscription too, but I can only really hit that big ones. And then just like YouTube fumbling around. But like I know I think it was the Last Woman Standing, like Charlotte Becky. That was probably 2 or 3 pay-per-views ago. Like Becky had like covered Charlotte in all these chairs, and then like Charlotte comes kind of like crumbling out, and chairs are kind of going everywhere. Like Michael Cole is like verbatim. He's like, Charlotte is risen, and he said is risen. And like, I looked at my wife. I was like, "Did you just hear that? What are you talking about?" I was like, "He said Charlotte is risen."
You got to know that's like a Vince line coming from commentary as well. Like he's definitely putting that into Michael Cole's ear.
Look at her, she's the Christ child.
Look at her. But it's
so vascular.
But I feel like a lot of it's there, and I have a little notebook I keep, and it's the right ideas in. Some stay, some go, and then other images like play into that too. And the reason they're primarily Christian based is because that's kind of where my knowledge of religion is based within. But I am trying to branch out for more like material, quote unquote, or sources. But I know it's interesting when you do start to branch out, you find a lot of them are all the same. Just kind of switching up names and changing things around to a degree.
One of your works, the one I fell in love the most with, is not necessarily overtly religious. Is that Andre collage with a segmented head, like the one that you really tried to pressure me into getting 2 stickers of. But that one, like when I saw it, it blew my fucking world apart. How does that idea even
I mean, that almost like gave me more of like a Buddhist Eastern religion kind of aesthetic.
Thanks. I appreciate with the collages. That's something pretty new to me, and that was kind of the goal, is to like just blow people's fucking minds with them. I gotta put him over because he got me turned on to it. I was a buddy of mine on Instagram, Hulk Hogan.
So that dude's awesome. I love that guy. Yeah, Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, so it's HULL space Kogan, KOGAN. He's a genius.
Yeah.
And I think one of the first like merch things he did was like this Hulk Hogan collage kit. And it's a baggie with like some different scraps of paper. There's a little canister of like matte medium in it. There's a little paintbrush. There's a pen. So it's like a little kit you would use to make a collage. I mean, it's pretty simple. And he's designed it well, and there's some stickers in there and stuff. It's a probably maybe 5 by 7 inch bag full of stuff. And I ordered one from him. I think it was like $5 or something. And so I was like, I think I was on Christmas break. So I was like, let's try one of these collages. So he sent me that, and then the collage just started kind of rolling. That Andre piece, I feel like it's. I mean, with the collages, it's always an easy fallback. Is like, well, because I like flowers and like green stuff, so like plants and whatnot. So it's always an easy fallback to plants. It's the Garden of Eden, dude. Duh. But like, I think the title of that, which I always kind of fluctuate titles and change them as I go as to what I feel should be the title that day. But the title of that one is, I think it's In Those Days There Were Giants and There Still Are, or something like that. And that's part of the Noah story. And I don't, it's like one of those things in the Bible that's mentioned, and then it's like, oh, well, yeah, there are giants. And then let's get on to the Noah part. So it's not like a direct correlation in regards of like, oh, this happened. It's just like the word giants in the Bible, and then there it is. And Andre the Giant is, the word giants in his name. So you can kind of just title the piece based off the verse and then just roll with it. But I wanted to do some of that kind of dissection stuff too. It's pretty popular right now. If you start to kind of float around especially like within digital collages online, if you start to look for it, you can like, if you just Google search digital collage portrait, and like somebody's chopping a head in half to see what it looks like and making some flowers or sprigs come out of it or something.
I wonder if it all came from Return of the Living Dead with the split dog. Either of you get that reference?
I've seen the movie, but I can't remember it.
There's a part.
That escapes me, buddy.
There's a part in the warehouse where they've got all of the stuff that becomes reanimated when the gases leak out of the chamber, and one of them is like this surgical model dog that's like split in half, and so you can see all the inside of it as a student, and then it becomes alive, and it's like barking and shit while it's like split. And it always troubled me, but it was pretty awesome.
I'm seeing it now. I don't know what became so popular about it. I think for me, if you go back into the splitting of the physical form and letting the interior, and with that piece in particular, it's like flowers and stuff coming out, and
Well, Andre's made of flowers and everything nice. Everyone knows.
But of course. And then I was always a big fan, and even the other collage. There's two specific ones that I think have, like, I don't necessarily consider them like failures, but they're more of a learning experience than a finished product. But like, I was always really attracted to like the National Geographic pages as a child, that like, it'll be like in the rainforest or under a pier or under a dock, and it's this singular image, but it kind of contains like 90% of the animals that live in that area within the one image.
Yeah, I know the ones you're talking about.
And then there's like a little number usually next to them, and there's a little key. And I always was really attracted to those images, just how kind of chock full the artists made them. I remember even like as a kid, like fantasizing about like, I want to be an artist that does that. And then now I think like that would be horrendous.
The amount of intricate work required. No, get out of here with that.
Fill it all into this one fucking space without it looking all wonky.
Yeah. And then, and then the biologist coming and telling you that the red fox is too red.
Yeah. Or like the comparative size issues, you know, like this fox is way too big compared to this butterfly. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
What are you doing?
but that's kind of what I'm for with those Andre, with that Andre collage, like is kind of like just
get as much stuff in as possible.
Yeah, just full of stuff.
Yeah, because the more you look at it, like you're more like, holy shit, look, oh my god, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's other ones that I've done, and I haven't gone that same layout or form, and it's been a little tougher to figure out like where things should go, and how does this work. So I think I'm still kind of forcing myself to not just do that kind of filling the space as I see, but I think that does definitely visually work. So when I want to pull it back out, then I do.
Another one of the collages, like layout wise, that I was just blown away with was the Mark Henry one. Like that was just beautiful, man, and like just the composition and all those little details that you're saying. Yeah.
So that one was. I'd seen a sculpture that. A lot of stuff, like I'll see things in 3 dimensions, and I'll see if I could make it 2. It could have been that I just saw Pinhead and was like, no, that's what it was. I was doing a logo for a cat in New York City, and he wanted a skull, and I'm gonna put some stink on it. So I put like spikes coming out of like bone tendon type spikes coming off the skull. And he was like, I don't want the spikes. It looks like Pinhead.
What's wrong with Pinhead?
That looks sick.
That was kind of what I said. And I was like, well, I mean, he did tell me exactly what he wanted. Then I tried to change it. So
right. It happens. That's how commissions go.
I told myself, like, those spikes are gonna come back. So then that's where I kind of got that, floating head of Mark Henry with the kind of golden, yoke inside of it with the spikes kind of protruding, in that kind of layered format of I'm actually looking at it here on the computer now. That kind of layered format of the animals and plants and animals and plants, and then I think. Can't remember with that one what's like. I found some interpretive dancers there too. I think with that one,
I think they're my favorite part, actually. Like they're sort of they're like in my mind's eye, they're kind of like praying to this moment, or they're just wowed and glowing in the beauty of it type of thing.
Yeah, the arms are up in a kind of weird arched back posture.
I just realized this is a very visually referential podcast. So
it is. So everyone better be looking at this Instagram page.
Yeah, make sure you both have his Instagram up if you're listening to this podcast. And you're gonna have to roll back and forth because it's a lot of us talking about what the pictures look like.
And like, with that one, I think I kind of figured out through the Andre the Giant one is like you need a kind of base color so your things don't get too far off from each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like I just would look for like a lot of similar tones and such. That piece actually is. Where is that one? That one was in California. It's on its way back now, and then it has to go somewhere else for a show, like by the 5th of next month. I just got Andre back in the mail today. It's always weird because like it's nothing. I don't worry. It's just like a super surprise. It's like, oh, it's artwork I know I'll like. But yeah, I do worry a little bit sometimes. Like, where is it? What is it doing? Who's seeing it? Who's not picking up what I'm putting down? Who's offended by it? Who's not?
Do you have like explanations that accompany the work? Like some of the art galleries you go to have that little sort of like explanation spiel, or do you prefer for it to kind of speak for itself?
Well, sometimes they'll ask, sometimes they don't. I keep it pretty loose, just kind of keep it to that Christ reference. I don't. The Mark Henry one, like, aside from it being plants and stuff, there's no like, and there's gold in it, but there's no really religious reference in it. I just like, so I gotta say it because the title of that one is one that I actually haven't changed, and I was proud when I came up with that one. So the Mark Henry one is
Chocolate Hall of Sexual Pain.
Chocolate Hall of Sexual Pain.
Amazing.
So, which I feel like Mark Henry should have like used that at some. Like, it's too good. Like,
That's
how do you
what I do.
Yeah, like, how do you have two gimmick names and not like decide to smash them together? I was at Elimination Chamber last month, and he was there to hype his documentary that aired after it, and he came out and gave a little spiel. I'm back in the 275th row. Be like, I know he saw that I tagged him on that collage.
Definitely in the back of his mind.
Yeah, like I wouldn't claim that I like have seen all of the wrestling art that exists, but I don't see that much Mark Henry wrestling art.
Yeah.
So
Toby be like, I was pretty jazzed with that fucking collage, man.
I think there should be, but I just don't see him, looking at his phone in the morning, like, oh God, another plethora of drawings of me.
I kind of want to make that a thing.
Stop.
I kind of want to create this like hashtag of Mark Henry wrestling
Mark Henry art.
Yeah.
Let's create this movement, man.
Dude.
World's artist man.
Yeah. But that's another thing too. I mean, I feel like within, which I kind of wanted to discuss with YouTube as well, is that there's in the art world, there's high art, lowbrow, highbrow, outsider art, insider art, whatever, and then there's fan art as well. And I feel like there's this kind of weird thread that gets threaded within when you're so closely referring to pop culture that sometimes legitimate art can be misconstrued as like, oh, tag Mark Henry and it's fan art now.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's not.
Yeah.
And not that there's an issue with fan art whatsoever, but it's not. But sometimes I think there is a gray area that gets a price. I feel like people a lot of times forget about the term pop art, and it's like,
yeah.
So would you think maybe the distinction of fan art is art done specifically for that subject's attention, maybe almost to a point, or how would you see that?
Like, does it have to do with their background? Whether it's just someone doing something for funsies or someone that's actually making a practice out of it. Like, is that the distinction? It's an interesting thing to talk about, actually.
Because I've done things like images which I took time to do that aren't necessarily like super artistic, but I did it for enjoyment. It's art to me, and I wanted to share it. But I don't know. I wouldn't say it's fan art per se.
Yeah. I don't know where the line is, and I'm definitely not the person to draw it.
No, we're asking you now. You'll make the determination, and we'll let everyone know.
But I do find that it's sometimes because you kind of brushed on it with talking about like how do you explain the work within the realm of a gallery, and I feel like it can get construed in that way sometimes. This is just like a picture of Mark Henry, and I think the weird thing about the Mark Henry piece, it's in working with like pop culture and fandom to a degree, it's a really funny line to walk, because you're like, the Andre piece works because that's gotten into some shows and stuff too, and I feel like it works because everyone knows who he is, even if you're not a wrestling fan. And then the Mark Henry piece floats because I feel like in a lot of times people like the image, but they don't know who Mark Henry is.
Mm.
Oh yeah, I bet there's people that go past it. It's like, oh, sweet Rick Ross picture.
Yeah. so it's kind of like a funky little,
especially a real racist white guy, right, Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at all black guys look alike. Look at this guy.
Hey! Enough
I'm
of that,
kidding, buddy. I was saying that you are. I'm saying never mind.
Yeah. I dig it.
Yeah.
With that, what you were just talking about, Jackson, I was thinking like it struck really a chord with me with kind of like Shepard Fairey and the Obey stuff and Andre and like that is almost like where this whole sort of referential pop art kind of like at least when it comes to like the dissection with the intersection with wrestling. And the idea of using this image of a wrestler, and it's like most of the people, you know, that know, Obey and dig Shepard's stuff, it's like most of them probably have no idea about wrestling, but they just think this picture of Andre is cool. And I guess in a larger way, like you're saying, in sort of these art gallery contexts, it's like you're using the visual of this wrestler, and some people get it and they're like way into wrestling, some people don't, but it's like it sort of makes it bigger with the change in context, I guess. Like it's quite interesting, like to then you bring in like the world of merchandising into it and like making money off of this image, and then you know the worker wrestlers out there, anytime their likeness is used, they want to get some coin off of it. And I don't know, it's part of the conversation, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree. And I'm not in. If I ever, you know, I typically, if I can, and you know, if they exist on Instagram, like I'll tag them and I'll DM like there's a image like Ric Flair, and like there's no way in hell Ric Flair's gonna respond to me, but I'll DM. Like, here's this image of you, like, you know, happy birthday or whatever. Like, and so I feel like you know, if I sold a print for a measly 20, then
I bet if you tagged Charlotte,
like, hey,
you'd get a good response.
Touch with you, and but yeah, I think that's another thing to consider as well, and if.
I mean, I guess that's a bit of a different kettle of fish. I mean, to me, like if we are looking at it, you know, from an outside perspective, when you bring it into the world of art and like the use of sampling images and things like that, you know, like the whole Andy Warhol thing, it's like the subject matter of what you're including, it isn't necessarily just, you know, you're doing a picture of them so they get X amount of money for their licensing fee. It's like it's just utilizing sample material, and it's like if it was just the picture of it and you hadn't done all of that hard work, like I don't think it'd be worth the value that you've given it. So
and I feel like too there's kind of, I don't know, there's an interesting kind of line that comes up of what does the culture own now, and what does the creator own? And I always think about I always think about George Lucas more so of like when he, in most people's opinions, bastardized Star Wars and made that second trilogy.
Yeah.
Like everyone was like, you've ruined something that's ours. It's like, well, he ruined something he made.
Yeah.
Like
doing the Vince, bringing the NWO in to destroy his own creation.
Yeah, totally. So
cut off his nose despite his face.
And I just imagine it's a pretty. I would imagine it's a pretty hard situation to be dealing with as that person, be it a character of it within wrestling, being like a character you've developed that became so ingrained in pop culture that like everybody's using it on everything versus like, well, what's actually yours now because you've become so popular, the culture now owns you or owns what you've created to a degree. Which I think is definitely up for debate and definitely a good discussion to have. I don't think there's any answer necessarily, but I can't imagine like, you know, I mean, I feel like if you look at wrestling images, you can say like, I would say like Andre and Macho Man, definitely Stone Cold as well. Like the culture owns those images now.
Yeah.
Like Hogan.
I don't think
I'd
anyone
go with Ric Flair too.
Yeah.
Ultimate
but yeah, like
Warrior,
honestly,
probably.
when I wanted to do like other shirt designs and ideas of wrestlers that I'm big fans of, but I feel so weird. Like this guy's alive. I'm like selling a shirt with his picture on it, like, or even dead one. Like I feel like I'm taking advantage of somebody by. Yeah, exactly. I feel. But there's other people out there have no moral obligation, apparently, against selling likeness of others. And who knows? Is it really a moral conundrum to do that?
To me, it's like how creative you are with it and how much you're adding to it. You know, if you're just straight up using their likeness and saying, "Here's a shirt with Macho Man's picture on it with the title Macho Man on it," it's like, dude, he probably should. His family should be getting some money for that. You know, Lanny should be seeing some coin there. But you know, if it is sort of reimagined and it's got some real creativity to it and it's been separated from the original subject matter, then that's where I guess it becomes a bit more of an interesting discussion.
Yeah, like I did that shirt for Sal Bandini won a wrestle, the whole fucking thing from Ready to Rumble.
Yeah.
And like Martin Landau's not alive. Is his family gonna see me selling this Martin Landau likeness t-shirt? I doubt it. That'd be so insane. All of a sudden Martin Landau's family, what the fuck are you doing?
I definitely want a Jimmy King t-shirt.
Oh, I was just looking at something. I want to do it. Hell yeah.
Beautiful.
And that one might just be a straight up picture of Jimmy King on a shirt.
Yeah, exactly. And then we go full circle, but then it's like, how many movie studios has that movie gone through the ownership of by this point? With like,
I probably have heat with Eric Bischoff. I know that.
Nice. So Jackson, I also wanted to. You mentioned before, like, about your kind of art friends and you being able to kind of like spin off of their insight with this stuff. Would you say you have like more art friends in that world than like wrestling buddies in that world, or what's the kind of like, what's the comparison there for you like that?
I would say like, I mean, true friends that like, you know, that other than like acquaintances and stuff, or guys that I shoot shit with online, and like, say a majority of the friends that are kind of lukewarm into wrestling, definitely into art. So I mean, it's there. But it's not as much so as I am necessarily. They're dealing with different ideas and different, you know, different structures of artwork in general that have nothing to do with wrestling, which is good. I don't, you know, everybody can't make wrestling images mixed with religious iconography.
I'd hope not.
Yeah. Everyone's just jumping on that.
So
start a new movement inadvertently and totally flood the market. Way to go, dude.
So yeah, I mean, it's bouncing ideas off. A really good friend of mine who's a photographer. He deals a lot with kind of figuring out what it is to be a white male in America.
It's tough, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to figure it out. But yeah, his work isn't dealing with that. But he's the guy I go to all the wrestling shows with. And then like my wife's an artist as well. Her her work deals a lot with like what the home structure is and can be, and kind of how we view, architectural structures and how we label them and encounter them, and then how what happens in those structures can change. So no, I mean but I think the beauty, I feel like.
Do you find you get a unique perspective from them on this wacky world of wrestling that you wouldn't get otherwise? Or are they just kind of a bit more indifferent, as you were saying, they're not quite as into it as you might be?
I definitely enjoy listening to what my wife has to say, Kai. K.I. is her name. Kai Milla. But because she's, number one, she's coming to it as a female. Mm-hmm. Number two, she's coming to it as a Black American. Number three, she's coming into it based on my own fandom.
Yeah.
So because she didn't grow up watching it.
Yeah.
She kind of started watching it when we first started getting together or hanging out a decade or so ago. So I really like getting her perspective, not so much. I mean, she's there to look at the work and give me pointers and tips and clues and stuff. But but we've talked about, she and I've talked about our artwork for the past 10 years. That's, most of what we talk about. So I really like to get her perspective, kind of watching a new fan, kind of experiencing these things. Like that, the Elimination Chamber was her first pay-per-view. It was her first televised and pay-per-view event that she had ever been to.
Wow.
She had been to a fair amount of house shows with me, but and I like getting her perspective on just like different wrestlers, what she's what she thinks they're doing with them, what they are doing with them. And she did something the other day that made me like super proud and happy. She was someone had a women's title match, but I can't remember.
Dana Brooke?
Yeah, it was Dana Brooke. And like 2 weeks prior to that, Kai had said, like, before the match was announced, Kai had said, like, Dana Brooke, like, her chops are getting tighter. Like, she's starting to look like really good out there. And then like 2 weeks later, they're putting her for the strap. I was like, whoa! Like, I remember like the first time like that ever happened to me, that I like saw somebody out of the blue like just walk through the door first night and be like, that dude's got it.
Yeah, he's
gonna have a title. And then and it's a nice feeling. It's almost like a weird gratification that like, oh, I'm such a fan that I could spot like who's got it.
Oh yeah, once you start seeing behind the Matrix code, you become a different kind of fan.
Yeah, so that was exciting when because I mean I didn't see. She was like, that Dana Brooke, she's getting there, and I was kind of like, ugh, whatever. Different. Like,
that's really cool.
I preferred her when she was Alexandra York number 2.0 or whatever.
But I think I've heard Tommy Dreamer say it, and like everything can go back to wrestling. And I feel like in having conversations, with my artist friends or people that aren't artists or people that aren't fans of wrestling, like you can wiggle around enough to make the conversation somewhat interesting. Hopefully, just because the wealth of information and narratives within wrestling are there. So, and I feel like with film and TV shows and everything in between, like I think people are consuming wrestling without even knowing it to a degree now. Like, if you've seen any Fast and the Furious movie in the past 5 or 6 years, if you've seen a movie with Dwayne Johnson, then chances are he's elbowed someone or done a rock bottom. you might not know that, but he did it. And like I remember, so this is like way back, but like Blade 3. Do y'all remember that?
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He has Triple H in it, and he has a little Pomeranian.
Yeah.
I always thought it was so weird that of all people that they had back then, they went with Triple H. I mean, I know why with hindsight and everything, but I just thought he was quite strange in that part.
Yeah, but even in that movie, like there was this, like they're fighting in like some weird jail cell or something. And he like, I want to say, I don't think he
gives him a wrestling move. I remember there was a wrestling move. It was like a body slam or something, right?
Yeah. So I think it's one of those things like people are consuming even if they don't know they're consuming it.
Doesn't Captain America do a German suplex to somebody in the fucking first Captain America movie?
I think so.
Yeah, it's like they throw wrestling moves into everything nowadays. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's kind of everywhere, which is good. It's good for artists like us. It's good for people in the business, obviously. And it's good for anybody that enjoys wrestling in general and enjoys that type of storytelling.
I mean, I guess you can look at it from like the narrative structure of the movies as well. Like one of I reckon my favorite movie that The Rock has ever made is Walking Tall. And like the actual like story of that movie, it's so like, you know, basic and formulaic in a way, but just so well done. I mean, I love the original Walking Tall film as well, probably even more, but it's just like the exact, you know, story of a wrestling match, you know, where you've got your start bit where they sort of get you interested in what's going on with like the opening spot. You've got some sort of dramatic thing that happens, and then the heat where what was it? I think it was like the corrupt sheriff working with the drug dealers, and then your final, you know, triumphant climax and comeback and finishing sequence. Like that's all, you know, a wrestling match is. But that's like what every good story should be. You know, you can change it up a bit here and there, but it's always the same thing. I thought. Sorry, go on.
No, I was gonna say I think wrestlers are kind of doing. There's certain guys that are kind of doing the opposite of that too, and like if you watch, like Ricochet and his stuff now, he's getting more and more like he's pulling Avenger moves into his posturing, which I didn't notice at first, and I definitely didn't notice it when he was in Lucha Libre. But like even his music when he comes out, it's like that kind of like Hans Zimmer, like the music is superhero music. And then if you look at his,
I actually got like when I was watching Lucha Underground back when he was Prince Puma, like I got a lot of superhero vibes from him there. It's like even just the larger than life, you know, hero character that was Prince Puma, I thought it was very over the top, like movie superhero type of thing.
Yeah, and he does the like the kind of like one hand down, knee down, other knee up,
superhero pose.
Yeah, that kind of posture, and then there was something he does. I was watching the newest NXT today, and I never noticed, but that kind of like. That front kick that's kind of getting bigger now where you kind of just kick someone's hip out from under them. And it's just kind of like a straightforward low kick, but you kind of stomp at them to a degree.
And then the guy kind of takes like a front bump when he's like, leg goes out kind of thing.
Yeah, and like lands on his face.
Yeah.
Like that's totally like that's the Punisher superhero. Like that's the superhero movie where you can just kick someone in the leg like that in the front and they, you know, like face plant. So I think it's definitely, you know, they're kind of pulling in from multiple directions as to like how they're getting their characters across, which I think is good. I think there's a need for that type of character, and like with Ricochet, like that his ring garment or whatever he wears out is
cloak or whatever, or
his vest bathrobe cloak is.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's not meant to look like a superhero, then it has no other purpose.
One and only.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's working both ways, and like you said, like with I think we're just definitely consuming wrestling at a probably not.
Feeder pitch.
Yeah, probably not at the same pace we were in the '90s, or '80s too. But I think it's definitely
maybe less people are, but like the people that are consuming it at a far higher rate than we ever were, like in the '80s or even the '90s. Like, because
I'm more honest about my fandom. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
I wasn't so open about being a wrestling fan. I didn't really know anybody who also was, or they were also probably closet wrestling fans themselves. And as I become more an adult, I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Wrestling's awesome.
Yeah, I remember it was cool, like in the late '90s. I remember when I was in high school or primary school and high school back then, and then into like maybe 2000, it was still kind of cool. Like there'd be a bunch of dudes at school where we'd all talk about it and everything. And then it just like, soon as WCW went down, it was so not cool anymore, and you wouldn't talk to people about it, and it was this weird secretive type of, oh, you watch wrestling, you know. But then it's made a real comeback lately with all like the cool wrestling that's available, I guess.
Yeah, and I think I think storytelling's gotten better. The athleticism of the wrestlers has clipped up a notch to compete with, you know, the other things that can be seen.
Other forms of entertainment.
Yeah. And so I think it's a good spot to be in. But like what you just said, and what both of you just kind of said, that's another kind of that idea of like dropping out of being a fan and then coming back in later in life. That's kind of another thing that I think about a lot within my work, is in relating it back to religion, not to like backtrack into another conversation, but like that idea of kind of you're raised with a certain belief and then eventually you kick back against that and drop it in your later adolescence, and then some of those beliefs you eventually come back around into.
100%.
Especially, and I really like it with that idea with wrestling, because most of the reason any of us dropped it was because we kind of found out it was choreographed, and at the time we would have like.
I noticed you back off on saying the F word. We don't want
to. The phony stuff. It's hooey. It's hooey. It's wrestling.
But that a lot of people have been told that about their beliefs as well, or they felt that way about their beliefs at some point.
Yeah, they made them feel stupid for. It's like, you assume that just because we like this thing that we are buying in 100% and going to humiliate us for us. I don't even want to deal with this. I will stop watching what I liked.
Yeah. So I think there's definitely a parallel to like born again Christians within that, of like, why did you depart from your belief, and then why did you come back?
Such a parallel, like you're just saying. I find that really interesting, the idea of the parallel of people looking down upon wrestling fans, and then also the parallel of I see a lot of people looking down on people who are religious. You know, the idea that they think it's dumb, or that it doesn't make sense, you know, with their belief system, and then like condescending someone else because of you know, their own beliefs. Like in both cases, it's crazy fucked up. But it's definitely there in both of those things.
Yeah, and I was approached by someone that I speak to on a regular basis, and they asked me, "Are you still doing drawings of that fake wrestling stuff?" And I was like, it was kind of like, well, number one, as a fan, it was like, what decade are you living in?
Hey, man.
It's a shocking announcement. Did you know that this wrestling is fake? I just found this out last week. What's going on here?
Yeah.
Thought it was all above the level.
Yeah, and my big thing with that kind of idea was always that, like, well, like, so if you're like ousting anything that's not as it presents itself on television or entertainment, then, like, tell me what books you're reading, what TV shows you're watching, what movies you're going to see. Like, what are you doing that's only based in reality?
Yeah, no fiction
Dude,
whatsoever.
when I was a kid, I wanted to watch Raw, and I was with my family. My dad was also a fan, but the rest of the family didn't want to watch Raw. And they said, we don't want to watch that fake bullshit. We want to watch Alien Nation. And Alien Nation was a TV show about a man with a alien partner, and they were both cops.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Does that word and that kind of mindset of, like, if that's your reason you don't like it, then it's like really challenging to me that you're like consuming other things and that aren't, quote unquote fake or choreographed or
like you
scripted.
only watch documentaries.
Yeah.
But the funniest thing, those documentaries these days are so warped.
Tony.
Like,
oh, totally.
They're a work, dude.
So that idea definitely hits home too. Is that kind of losing your religion to a degree and then coming back to it with which I think that is kind of what's happening, is that because we're around. I think we're all around the same age, so we're the guys and girls that did kind of depart after WCW kind of crashed. And now we're coming back, or have been back, except now kind of the demand we have has been met to a degree.
Wow, I didn't think about this. Like, it kind of even broadens out to people who are fans kind of proselytizing wrestling. Like, I definitely put over how much I love wrestling all the time, constantly. It's the only thing I almost talk about. Kind of probably annoying, but it's like I am going around proselytizing the greatness that is professional wrestling. Please, all hail grappling.
You should really start knocking on doors, Jeremy.
Yeah, would you like to talk about our Lord and Savior Ric Flair? Woo.
Love it.
Woo with me, my child.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like something that's come back around, and I think it's such a, as many other things are, but I think it is such a kind of litmus test of the culture at the time too, where I think you could read the history of a nation by watching wrestling. A lot of times, is it the art imitating life, or is it the life imitating art? Because especially within wrestling, it's week to week. I mean, they got to stay on topic and on point and stay relevant. So I think there's a wealth of information there, and information you can kind of pick up and learn about a society from. But yeah, so yeah, I think that's definitely kind of that comeback around to it is definitely another thing I think about quite often, is that kind of, you lost it and then you came back. And some fortunate people, or I consider them fortunate, never had to lose it.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of years that I missed, and it was shortly after that WCW fall, I would imagine. But because before that it was epic, so I'm actually kind of interested to see what happens with like All Elite and WWE, and what, if that's even gonna be like a head-to-head type thing.
I mean, it's probably the closest thing since, honestly, and I think that's why a lot of people are so excited. But yeah, it's crazy to think like how many people, because even when like WCW was in its dying days in like 99, 2000, like especially 99, it was still enormous. Kind of that too big to to fail type of thing. And then 2000, and then boom, 2001. But it's like you still had more people than watch Raw now were watching Nitro then. And then it just ceased to exist. And this was like a lot of people were like, I would never watch that WWF crap. I only watch WCW. So it's almost like you've just erased like half of the United States wrestling fans. And then a lot of them just never came back. Like, as much as like TNA tried to bring them back, or who knows what's going to happen now with Elite. But just nuts to think, for so many people, that was such a big part of their life. And then it's just gone. And then they're just out of it.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's interesting. And I had friends that kind of did the same too, kind of dropped out around the same time. But kids are funny like that though, because they can just be like, oh, I'm done with that.
Yeah, like fad culture.
Yeah, like there was
I remember I was really into ice hockey growing up, and then it's like it died completely to me. I won't even watch the Stanley Cup anymore.
Yeah, and like I did these, or I'm still doing.
Hang on. I'm trying to. You were into ice hockey?
Well, Mighty Ducks was a very important part of my life, Jeremy.
It all makes sense now. You're just a big fan of guys named Goldberg.
Yeah, exactly. Knuckle puck. Oh.
Oh my God, cake eater. That's a deep cut Mighty Duck line if you watch the movie.
Mad love for that movie. All of them.
Yeah. Sorry.
Even Mighty
That blew
Ducks
me away. The dude from Australia is in ice hockey.
Ice hockey.
I only did roller hockey myself with my friends because it was quite hard to find an ice rink down in Little River, Victoria, Australia.
Imagine so.
But yeah, to go back to the main subject matter from that sidetrack.
I was working on this. I want 13 of them eventually, but I'm working on these kind of like little altar pieces, or they're actually kind of large. And I have a few of them up, but they're wooden, framed in black, and they're wooden etchings essentially. They're laser etched. And then I would take little wrestling figurines and spray paint them a gloss black, and they almost look, and they kind of sit on the frames wrestling each other and stuff. Kind of like adornment for the frames.
That's cool.
And so I think the first one I was like, oh, I need 4 of these, so I just went to Walmart and bought them, and then it's like, oh, these are expensive. It's like if I want to use more of these, I need to find another resource. So I got on like a garage sale or something and found a guy who was selling like a tub of them for like, I think it was like 70 wrestlers for like $200 and 2 rings and light up elimination chamber entrance and a whole bunch of stuff, 7 different belts, and enough to where $200 was like, it's not actually a bad deal if you add up that each wrestler's $15. So I went and met with him. I was like, what are you getting rid of all this for? And he was like, my son just came home last week and said that he liked soccer and he didn't like wrestling. So it's the same deal. And his son was like, I guess probably 7 or 8. And he was like, yep, he's into soccer now. He's done with wrestling. And then my daughter, who's 6, so she's 2 years younger than the son, once she heard that he wasn't into wrestling, she's not into wrestling. So that's how I got. So now you have, think about like 15 other characters, or the figurines were like female wrestlers, which I didn't know this, but he told me, he was like, I didn't really mind getting rid of the guys, but the females, like, you have to hunt them down and they cost more.
Wow.
Which I didn't know.
Man, that's interesting.
Yeah, apparently I could see WWE making less of them, thinking that they won't sell as well. So I could believe that you would have to hunt them down. But
what's going on?
Yeah.
We occasionally run into music that I've put into previous podcasts that jump in. It doesn't make it really into the actual final cut. It just ends up in our ear.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So she'd probably not sell it and put it over that it's going on,
just
right?
no sell it.
Okay, let's continue.
They might hear a hint of it. I don't know.
But I'd not known that, and that the female figurines cost more and they're harder to find. But it was like you were saying, like, it's like, oh, came home, didn't like wrestling anymore.
Man, speaking of those,
Dad, the kids at school says marks don't get no pussy, but if you play soccer, you're gonna get all the ass in the world.
Oh man, so good, so
good.
good.
And said, "Let's go watch Avengers."
Dude, have you you mentioned like these like figurines in the altar kind of setup. Have you seen like the Mexican? I've seen them in a few of the art exhibitions I've been to, like Mexican art, where it's almost like a diorama, and this is kind of like a thing in Mexican religious culture where they have almost like a tribute altar type of thing, and they've got flowers and Jesus and things like that. But there's some really cool ones I've seen in some exhibitions lately that are like Mexican wrestling versions of that.
I have to look. Oh, there's a specific term for that. I can't remember what it is, but like I know exactly what you're talking about, where you're kind of paying tribute in a sense, or like praying over someone or to someone who's passed, like an altar of remembrance. So they're similar in nature. I
definitely had it explained to me at the art exhibition, but it's escaped me. But I just thought it was so interesting and similar along the lines of this discussion, and they actually used like wrestling figures, like little Mexican lucha libre wrestling figures for it as well. But yeah, I just thought it was like sort of interesting with regard to the current conversation.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of the ones that have like you're talking about necessarily, but I have seen those like altar pieces, even within the area. I went to a Catholic art school to get my master's degree, and and I'm not Catholic. I just got a scholarship there, so I went. And that was kind of one of the first big introductions to like that the idea of like the grandeur that religion can be. Of like, oh, you need all this stuff to do it and to do it right. Which I feel like that you kind of get a lot of that within wrestling too. Like you can't just. I mean, you can just be a fan, but everyone's gonna say you're just kind of a passive fan. Like you need shirts and figures and
almost like in putting together, like putting on a wrestling show as well. Because I've got friends that do that, and the idea that it's not legit, like this professional wrestling, unless it's got like a multi-billion-dollar production budget behind it and pyro and lighting rigs and lasers and all that kind of shit. Like the idea that independent wrestling somehow isn't as legitimate because it doesn't have the stuff.
You're gonna want that fog machine.
Yeah.
Somebody smoking a cigarette right by the edge.
That's all you need.
They come out, yeah. Yeah, but there is a lot of stuff, and I mean, I guess that's what. I mean, I don't. Like I've heard, and I don't know about wrestling, but I have heard with Star Wars, like in the 80s and stuff, like it wasn't the movies that made the money, it was the merch.
Oh yeah. Same with a lot of those like 80s cartoons where like the actual TV show itself didn't make the money, but then like the amount of Ninja Turtles friggin' figures that they sold.
Yeah. So yeah, I think, and that's another parallel that I think about often too is like, well, you got to have all this stuff to prove you're a legitimate fan to a degree, which is fine. I mean, people need stuff.
People like stuff. We live in a consumerist culture.
Yeah. I mean, you can't, well, I guess you could, but you can't hurt anyone with most wrestling merch. So it's a good thing to have compared to a switchblade.
I do have a miniature baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire that I purchased at an FMW show once, so that could probably do some damage.
Right,
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I wish I got Onita to sign it, actually. That would have been cool. Anyway. Jackson, I wanted to touch on like your day-to-day process, because I always find this really interesting talking to other artists, both the similarities that I find from it, and then like the people that are just way more organized than me and can like just map out the day and do exactly what they thought they were going to do. Tell me about like your normal day, on a day that you get to dedicate it to your art, or however that looks for you.
Yeah, so I was glad you asked this, because I remember you asked Eric that too, and talk with him. So typically I get up 4:30, which I've had some conversations with you at that time.
Yeah.
And then,
probably a lot better time zone wise for me, but
so, and no, it wasn't like I wasn't sorry, but I wasn't waking up just to talk to you. But,
crushed.
I get up at 4:30, take the dog out, make some coffee, and come inside and draw until depending on what I'm working on, I'll either draw or paint. If it's something wet media, then I'll paint, because I can do that at home easily. I can't do that.
Do you find you have to do a bit of drawing before you warm yourself up to like the actual painting, or if it's more of a important work kind of thing, or you just can go straight away?
I can typically go straight away. There's certain things that I'll like for the pen work that you were talking about that look more like etchings. Like I have some generalized pencil line work down, so it's not just straight pen. Like I'd probably need to wake up if I was going like just straight on blank paper.
Yeah.
But I'll do some reference lines and whatnot to kind of like show me where I'm at. So I don't necessarily do like warm ups at that early in the day, because it's all about time and trying to get time to work.
Gotcha.
So, get up, take the dog out, draw. I'll usually draw till about like 6 a.m. So that's 2 hours to an hour and a half, depending on when I wake up at 4:30, and then I go into the back room of my house and I do yoga for 2 hours.
Damn. 2 hours. I got to know a bit of yoga and was happy with myself when I do half an hour of yoga. 2 hours.
Yeah. It's a different kind of practice than most people have experienced if they've been to like a yoga studio, or even watched like a DVD. It's called, and I won't go too deep into it since we're tracking the day. It's called Ashtanga yoga, and it's like a set series of postures that you memorize and go through. So it's almost more like calisthenics.
Right.
And there's 5 different 2-hour sessions, and they get progressively harder. And so when you first start or you begin doing it, you do that first session every day of the week, Monday through Friday or Monday through Saturday, depending on what the phase the moon's in. But I can tell you about that if you ask later too. And then once you can kind of do the first one, then you can move to the second one. And then on Monday and Tuesday, you do the first and second, and then you just kind of alternate. And then eventually, if you do it long enough, then you'll be able to get through to do all 5. So you actually are doing different ones every day. So anyway, 2 hours of yoga. And then, by then it's about 8. My daughter's up. Everyone's awake. So get up. Done with that, the yoga, depending on what my work schedule is. Some days I'll have my daughter in the morning. My wife will go to work. Other days I'll go straight to work. I teach drawing and painting at a college here in South Texas. Typically with that, I go teach, and then I'll take my work with me. I have like a big drawing pad. I would say it's like 2 feet, about 2.5, 3 feet maybe. I'll bring a piece with me if it's not wet media, and it's like something I could just like put out and pop in and out on. Because the studio drawing classes and painting classes, it's 3 hours. So I mean,
yeah, you're gonna have some downtime there.
Yeah, and so you're telling someone to like, okay, this is how you'll, for instance, blend a sky that looks like a sunset. Like it's gonna take a little while for you to show them, but it's gonna take longer for them to do it. So there is some downtime that you can kind of pop in and out on a drawing. Then, work until work's done, and then go home. Daughter goes to bed 7:30. Usually during the week, I'll draw some more till about 9 or 10, and then shoot the shit with the wife, talk to her about whatever happened during the day. I mean, we eat in there too, but at some point
didn't sound like it.
But then jump on Instagram, look around, see what the world's up to, and then kind of just go again. Just do it the next day.
Wow.
And that's kind of how it rolls. I mean, there's not like it's so weird because like after my daughter's only 1, so she's about to turn 2, but it's like what I never drew this intensely before she was born, like because I just always felt like I had the time.
Yeah, I get that.
And then when you don't, all of a sudden it's like now you start to judge things. It's like, oh, well, do I really want to play like? Am I going to play like Red Dead Redemption, or am I going to draw? And it's like, well, I'm going to draw.
Yeah, because you got to make that time.
Yeah, and it's like, well, am I going to watch wrestling, or am I going to draw? It's like, well, I'm going to draw. And I'll, every now and then I'll put something on in the background. But like you said, it's 4 a.m. when I get a lot of the stuff done, and it's like it's enough for me to be able to do it without doing warm-ups, like you said. So I can't necessarily have the TV on to distract me while I'm trying to like actually get something down pat.
I mean, I can't even have wrestling on in the background because I'll get too distracted by it, and I'll I can't watch a wrestling match without actually completely giving all my attention to it.
Yeah.
So I get that.
Yeah, and like when I was in school, I used to constantly have I'm not sure if the network was on. It wasn't very big at the moment. Like it didn't have a lot, so I didn't have it. But I had like tons of DVDs because that was when all the blockbusters were closing.
Nice.
Because Netflix was getting big, and you could go buy like DVDs and all this stuff for like pennies on the dollar.
Oh yeah, dude, I have so many wrestling DVDs from that. Like just going to those blockbusters.
Yeah. That was a good time to be a fan of home video and DVD.
Dude, I used to get all my wrestling from fucking Suncoast.
What is
Suncoast videos?
I haven't even heard of that.
It was in the States, probably, Chris.
Oh, I'm shocked.
Videos. It was no, it was almost like a video store, but they also had other mixed media of like posters, essentially, like a pop culture store, but with the focus on DVDs and VHS tapes. Yeah. But yeah, they would always have like CZW stuff. That's where I first heard of Ring of Honor. Yeah.
That's insane. I cannot even imagine a video rental store in
XPW.
Australia having XPW and CZW. I thought it was pretty awesome when I got some ECW there.
It was like a place where you went to actually buy it, not a rental place.
Yeah, man, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yes, bananas.
Like in grad school, I would like watch. It was pretty much steady. Like I would watch the X-Files and wrestling DVDs, but those are both things that I had seen.
Yeah.
Oh, like previously. So I kind of, my mind knew when to look up when a good part was going to happen. So it was like background noise, but not distracting. Gotcha. Yeah, but that's kind of what the typical day looks like. Is just,
dude, that's crazy. That makes me feel terrible about myself and my own output and how well organized I am. I'm so impressed, man. But I totally get it as well, what you're saying. Like when you don't have something to push you and you feel like, hey, I've got this whole day to do whatever, you're not going to be as productive as you are when you know this is my window, this is when I have to get this shit done.
Yeah. And it's weird because it's one of those things that like only, well, I'm sure there's other types of professions and hobbies and enthusiasts to compare it to, but I only know of artists that feel this way. But it's like, because a lot of like the artists that I communicate with and yourselves also, just from what I gather, like it's not like you're constantly working on commission either. No, sometimes you are.
It'd be good if you could be. I guess that's a goal in a way. But I mean, that would suck as well because your playtime is like the fun time. When you're doing a commission, to me, it's like that's the work time.
Oh yeah. So then comes in the question of like, well, who are you even? Why are you waking up to work on? Like, who are you working on this for? And it's like, well, I guess it's me. But so. And
that sounds nice.
And it's not work, and it's fun.
Yeah.
And it needs to. It's such a interesting medium to draw or paint or create that you see something in your head and then you make it real.
Yeah.
And then that's awesome.
Yeah, there's something really just special about that in and of itself. Like I think that's fantastic.
And there is. Much like we were talking about early in the podcast too, like you can hear us talk about an image, but you're not going to be able to you're not going to fully understand it until you actually see it. And I think that goes the same thing for artists as they're creating an image. Like you got to make it so you can actually see it.
Yeah.
Other than just kind of in your head.
Yeah, because like in the mind's eye, it can be something completely different.
Through the process and change as it goes.
Exactly.
As you're in that creation process, so there is that internal artistic drive of like, well, this has to get done because people need to see that Andre the Giant's head has been split into 3 pieces and he's standing in a rainforest.
Well, how are they going to know what Mark Henry is?
It's something that isn't in the world, and I'm going to put it in the world.
Love it.
Same thing I feel kind of with my stupid fucking puns. Like, ravishing Rick Moranis will come in my head, and I'll have to say, well, that has to be done. I have to get it out of my head and stop thinking about it, so I'll create it. Some of them get dumber, like I did Lawn Strowman, where it's Lawn Strowman made out of the grass, and it's like eventually I just have to do this. I keep on thinking about this stupid pun, Lawn Strowman, and the only time it'll go away if I actually create it.
Yeah, my favorite ones, the most ridiculous.
Yeah, there's one I did pretty recently, which it wasn't even a pun at all. It was just I took different pieces of Triple H's head and cut them off, and then reshaped them and warped them around, and then put it back on his body, and then gave his suit 3 ties to make it look really weird. And I literally posted with, I have no idea why I made this, and it got so much traction. I thought it would be buried instantly. I was like, what the fuck is wrong with people? This isn't good at all.
I love it when that happens. It's funny sometimes, like what your expectations are a bit different to how it's received. It's great. Anyway, Jeremy, I want to fucking Jeremy Jackson. I'm all over the place, guys. Fuck me.
Yeah, but Jackson, don't.
Jackson, I wanted to make sure we're getting a little bit longer in the tooth with this. I could keep on talking to you for like hours. Hey, like I'm loving this chat. I'd love to have you on again sometime down the road.
Sure.
But for now, I wanted to specifically finish on your current kind of project that you're working through on your Instagram. You told me a little bit about.
Yeah, I've shared a little bit with you. The hype is much more than the actual project, but hype's, I mean, isn't it always? It's called what I've labeled it is Turnbuckle Prophets Replay. And I've used the term Turnbuckle Prophets kind of just for any of my drawings related to wrestlers and religion. But I have so many like ideas around that either I can't figure out how to make them work visually, or I don't have the time, or something else happens that I'm more attracted to artistically, that I feel like these ideas need to get out and portrayed somehow, but not necessarily do I have the time to necessarily work all the way through it. So I'm kind of backtracking through history, the Bible, art history as well. And I'm kind of, they're almost like mini history lessons in regards to art history, religion, and culture through the lens of wrestling. So like an example would be, it's very similar to what I'm doing with my artwork. An example would be like you take the story of Jacob wrestling the angel, I think on his way back to Damascus, but I'm not positive on that one. And you know, the Bible, that's all it says in the Bible. He wrestled the angel. He's essentially trying to get a blessing from the angel. The angel touches his hip, and to this day, that's why Jewish people don't eat the hip of lamb, because that's where the angel touched and injured Jacob. But you know, you can take that story and then add the context of what a match would be like within that.
Jacob and the angels. Man.
Yeah. So I'm kind of, so like that's an example where you can take that one word wrestling and then start to stretch it and kind of explain that story, but with more of a focus on wrestling or towards a wrestling fan. And there's, I think there's there's three pieces for that where I've kind of backtracked art history, found I think that one, it's a Rembrandt. There's a Rembrandt painting for that. So it's all art that I didn't make that has withstood the test of time that I'm referring to for the imagery or for the, you know, quote unquote replay. And then there's a little segment of kind of explaining how this artwork is relevant, what it's depicting, and how it relates back to wrestling. Another one, and some get further off, some aren't necessarily having anything to do with religion. Like there's I can't remember who painted it at the moment. Let's see. Here we go. It's Vincenzo Camuccini. He's Italian. But there's a painting of all the guys stabbing Caesar at his death, as we know, the Et tu, Brute story. And, you know, you can talk about that idea of betrayal but within the context of how I'm speaking about it, you know, it can be, it's been come to known as the Pompey Theater screw job, which any wrestling fan kind of like, oh, okay, now I understand. Like, so it's kind of a study of different pieces and how they relate, a little bit of art history, but also how they relate back to wrestling. Like there's and this is the last one I'll tell you about, not to take too much more time, but there's this. So most people have seen American Gothic. It's a bald gentleman with a pitchfork and a lady standing in front of a house.
Iconic image.
Yes, iconic image. But there's this other image that actually has the two people standing next to the painting. So the models for the painting.
Oh, okay.
Really?
And so that was painted by Grant Wood, and the models were his dentist and his sister. Most people think the model, like when you look at the image, they either think it's like father and daughter or husband and wife.
Yeah.
Typically. So
I always thought dentist and sister. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
No.
I'm looking at this image, the models one, right now. It's nuts.
Yeah. So essentially, like, so what you're doing, what is happening in that image is they're breaking kayfabe.
Yeah. What the
Like,
hell? They're not a farmer and his wife? They've been lied to.
So it's kind of, it's a 25-piece series. I'm hoping to do more, but a completed 25 of them. That'll be kind of the first season. But it's kind of looking at culture, art history, religion as well, and but all based within the realm of artworks that I think most people have seen before or digested before, and kind of working that into a context that a wrestling fan can understand and appreciate. Because as I said earlier, I think wrestling, you could tell the history of a culture just through the wrestling they're consuming.
100%. Man, I love that.
So
I highly recommend everyone tune in to this as well. Like, even if like you're a bit more on the fringe side of the art stuff necessarily, like, I find it incredibly interesting, and I think a lot of people listening would as well, if they've listened this far. I'm sure they would. So make sure you stay tuned to JediJackYeti on the Instagram to see that. Is there anywhere else that you really recommend people to stay tuned at through this specific project, or where do you see it going?
Just Instagram. I've played with the idea of possibly making it a page into itself, but there's no proof that it needs to be that yet. So, but I'll probably just for now keep it on my page, and it's just two of my passions. It's how I view both of them and how they relate to one another, to me, and because a lot of it is stuff that I already see when I look at things. It's like, oh, that wrestling's like this art, or that art's like this wrestling. But I know not everyone necessarily sees it that way, but I think there's certain things that I, wouldn't mind calling a little more attention to, so help people to kind of get it and understand my work a little better by showing kind of my thought process as I look at these things.
Nice. I love it, man. And again, I just wanted to put you over insofar as there's a fair whack of wrestling art stuff out there these days, which is wonderful. Like, I'm all about this wonderful subgenre that we've got of wrestling art, and it's like we're saying, it's more than just fan art in inverted commas. It's like it's its own thing, similar to the phenomenon that lowbrow art has gotten in and of itself. So I think it's a great thing that's going, but I love like people like you that have such a specific niche within that's all just onto yourself. It's so different, so distinct, and I always love artists to where there's just a distinct visual style, both through the subject matter and also the unique style that you're doing it with. So yeah, man, love your stuff, and again, highly recommend everyone check you out at JediJackYeti on Instagram. In closing, can I ask why you have that name on Instagram, where that came from?
That was back when my sister convinced me that it was like, you should do Instagram even though you don't do social media, and I was like, I guess I should. I'll think of things that I like. And I like Jedis and I like Yetis. And
me too.
Yeah, same here.
That's
one
all.
of my old nicknames used to be Bigfoot.
My name's Jackson, and then by the time it was like, oh, maybe I should like actually change that to like my name or something, then it was
It's
kind
too
of
late.
shit. Yeah, it's been like 3 or 4 years that I've been going by JediJackYeti, and so I guess I'll just stay JediJackYeti, even though it's
Jackson, I'm not Jeremey anymore. No one calls me that. Like,
Yeah.
I had to start turning around when somebody yells the word beak at me. It's
Yeah.
fucking obnoxious.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, I worked on I worked with on a little zine with the guy, and I don't think we knew each other's. I knew his name, but I don't think he knew my name till like we were almost done. It was like
So funny.
Yeti.
Go, JediJackYeti.
Yeah. So yeah,
I like
it's
it.
good.
I'm
Yeah, there's
happy that
nothing-
we have that insight. I feel like we
Yes.
know more about you because of it.
Yeah. just a few things
You
I
thought he just
prefer.
picked the words randomly and threw together. Doesn't
Yeah.
like Jedi's. Doesn't care for Yetis. It just looks cool.
Well, it's been a pleasure, and once I don't know, maybe once some of the little 25-piece series gets done, we can come back see if it caught any traction or what interesting things were said.
For sure.
100%, man. I've loved this chat, and I found it really interesting. Like we get to speak to kind of about stuff here that we probably don't get to otherwise, especially with the Anyway, thank you so much.
I normally would scoff when it'd be like a conversation going into like religious basis, but honestly, that was refreshing to be
Good.
Yeah.
Glad, because that's territory I don't want to be in.
Oh, understood. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get you on the podcast like, oh, let's hooey. No joke.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm a big fan of your work. We're so glad we could finally get you on. And I think the conversation is going to be really intriguing to people who like wrestling and art. And I even tweeted out recently that we're going to be discussing religion, and there's already been some good reactions. So thank you very much, man.
Excellent. Well, thank y'all. I'm sure we'll be talking on the gram soon anyway, but it was actually great to talk live and real.
Yeah, man, for sure. If I find myself in Houston, I'll definitely be hitting you up on one of my future trips.
Anyone else, let me know if you're around. I'll be here.
For real.
Thanks, man.
Thanks so much. It was my pleasure.
See you, brothers.
Cheers, dude. All right.
Very nice. That was awesome.
So good. All right, I'll hang up the call, and then Jeremy and I will finish up the show and close it down.
Woo!
Woo! Yellow.
Hey.
All right.
I'm not really sure why did you have to hang up? Because he already hung up on us.
Oh, well, I didn't need to do that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah,
great,
that was
great,
fucking
great.
an awesome chat.
I had a lot of fun.
That was great.
I feel enlightened.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was like. Once he started going into his like, okay, yeah, I do see the corollaries. Holy crap, these are striking when you actually take time to take. Normally you like scoff. Like, what a fucking ridiculous assumption, wrestling and religion. But really, it's all there.
Yeah, I mean, you get the same thing with a lot of artwork, right? Where you can take it on face value, but then when you find out a little bit more about it, it just becomes so much more interesting. And I'm definitely going to be looking at a lot of his stuff that he releases in the future in a different way, I think.
Oh, 100%. Dude, like, he pointed out the one about Paul Bear and the Crypt Keeper. Yeah, when he first put that up and he showed me, I was like, this is one of the most striking images I've ever seen and so unique. It looks like he used like those little scripto pens, you know what I mean? Like the really, really fine tip markers. You guys make me. I wish I didn't have an ADHD so I could actually sit down and do some artwork.
I look at his stuff myself, man, and just like the detail that it comes with him being an art teacher, and like how long he's been at it, and the amount of time that he puts into it. It's just like that attention to detail and crispness and just like the workmanship in it is something that I look at and get a bloody boner for.
And then actually the man himself is so interesting. Like you see a guy, like we were just talking about his handle on Instagram is JediJackYeti. Like, what is this guy gonna be like? Especially with the artwork he does. And then you start speaking to the man, like, wow, what an introspective and interesting dude.
Yeah, I love learning about people. You know, I would not have assumed he was a guy that does 2 hours yoga a day. You know.
No, we're totally stroking his cock after he's off the podcast. And hopefully, I doubt he'll listen to this one because he's been on it the whole time. But if you do, yeah, Jackson, you're fucking badass, brother.
Yeah, I'll tell him to skip to the end so he can get more verbal jerk-offs. All right. This show is going to be a long one. I was hoping it wasn't going to happen after the last episode, but you know, we have been away an extra day, so that's what you get, motherfuckers.
Well, hey, we also met somebody who could possibly be a little bit more long-winded than yourself, but it was totally all good, interesting chat, as with you as well, sir. But,
thank you. Yeah, it's going to be longer as well because right about now we're going to cut to my live thoughts from 2 weeks ago with a friend of the show, my cousin Ben, on the World Series Wrestling International Assault Tour. So throwing it over to you, past Chris. Let's go. Okay, so the World Series Wrestling International Assault Tour done and dusted. I'm here with friend of the show, my cousin Ben. He has been mentioned multiple times on this show before, so it's good to have him finally on. How's it going, Ben?
Yeah, not too bad, Christopher.
Nice.
It has been an interesting time.
So we're here to talk about the shows, give our live perspective. I came down to beautiful Melbourne, Australia, for these shows, in addition to Underworld Wrestling, and yeah, it was pretty good. What do you think?
It was reasonably good. I saw some things I truly say I never want to see again in my life.
Oh, so it's quite a strong reaction. What is this thing that's mentally scarred you?
Joey Ryan versus Gino Gambino.
Oh, so you're a bit of a big fan of Gino Gambino, generally speaking, right?
I love Gino. I'd love him more if I never saw him again in my life.
Oh, ouch.
He has his moments of comedy, but he also provided one of the most scarring things I've seen in a long time.
So what was this? Please describe for our listeners at home.
Joey and how he loves his lollipops.
We love the Joey Ryan blow pops on this show.
We do love his blow pops. They're quite entertaining. But he took it to a new level last night. In the middle of the match, he takes out his lovely lollipop from you know where.
From his trunks.
From his trunks, he proceeds to shove it up Gino's ass. So
Gino Gambino, for those playing at home, has a bit of a spot where he pulls down the trunks, revealed his quite rotund rear end.
Yes.
And he does a bit of a Rikishi kind of a stink face kind of deal. But Joey had the perfect counter to this maneuver. Got the lollipop out, and when Gino was ready to put his ample rump in Joey's face, he proceeded to stick the lollipop up Gambino's asshole.
Then for the next 30 or 40 seconds, only a minute, we proceeded to watch the referee try and remove this lollipop.
It was really lodged up there quite firmly.
From Gino's ass, and seeing Gino's ass, you could understand why he was having a bit of trouble. It seemed to get stuck right up there. After he managed to...
Finally got it out.
Finally removed it. Then Joey managed to retrieve it from the referee's hands and proceeded to stick it in Gino's mouth after he'd tussled him to the ground.
And Gino then promptly tapped out, as you would. I wouldn't want a Gino asshole lollipop in my mouth. I'd give up as well.
But you thought it had gone as far as it could possibly go. But then Joey asked the crowd.
Because, I mean, you know how Joey Ryan comes out, he does his entrance, he says to everybody, he gets his lollipop out, who wants this lollipop? And there's always a bunch of weird scumbag dudes who are like, I fucking want that lollipop in my mouth. And, but so they did that before the match, but then post-match, it's like, so who wants this lollipop? To which all of those dudes that before were like quite excited about it were like, no.
But,
so the place was so quiet.
But there was one chick who not only stood up, then he almost said, "Are you sure you want this?" And she proceeded to jump up for joy and open up and let it in.
Yep, and then Joe Ryan came over and stuck the Gambino asshole lollipop in her mouth.
But it wasn't one suck. She kept it in there until there was no lollipop left. That's like, I just couldn't believe what I was seeing.
The crowd reaction to this was pretty amazing.
She wanted that extra bit of topping on it or something. I don't know what she was thinking. Or the guy that was with her.
Yeah. How's that from his perspective? You bring like, I don't know if it's like his girlfriend or just like a date to the show, and then she proceeds to suck the asshole lollipops. Like, I don't know if I want to stay with this woman.
I can't say I'd ever look at her the same way. It's like,
or would it be a respect thing? Would you be like, you know what, this
chick's up for some crazy shit, but it's crazy and I'm probably willing to go. She was...
Yeah, certainly something else. So other than that, was that the main scarring thing? Was there anything else that you were particularly perturbed by?
That's the only thing that probably is possibly scarred me. But on the whole, I actually quite enjoyed the matches.
Yeah.
There's even a couple of chicks matches I didn't mind.
Yeah. On night 2, I actually thought Indy Hartwell and Jordan Grace was perfectly good women's match. Perfectly fine.
And there was nothing wrong with it. I wouldn't say there was anything great with it, but it was just a reasonably good match. The
night prior, we got...
Because we saw the best and worst of Indy.
Yeah, because the night prior she was working Kellyanne Salter, right?
Yeah, her name I don't know her surname, but yeah, Kellyanne was definitely her first name.
Yeah, and so Kellyanne and Indy Hartwell. And what did you think of that one?
It seemed like it was just a whole lot of sequences they'd figured out they wanted to do. And proceeded to just go one, Kellyanne would do her sequence, then Indy would try and do something. It just seemed to go from sequence to sequence. It just didn't seem to flow. It just seemed to be... Yeah. Just like they were ticking off a list of things, 10 things we must do in this match before we finish it.
I think a lot of American and or Australian women's wrestling can be a bit like that. Like a bit of a lack of fundamentals, I guess. But yeah, I could definitely see that. People were way fucking into Kellyanne for whatever reason.
Oh, especially that creepy fucking guy at the side of the ring.
There was a creepy old man in there. He was like just right on the edge of the thing, and he was all about Kellyanne. Hey,
I think he even had the bull ring going or something. He was had the big iPad there, fucking right on the ring corner. Just it seemed like he could have been next to his daughter.
Yeah,
it just looked fucking creepy.
And Kellyanne would do her thing, and he'd get particularly overjoyed. And there was a moment where he did like this weird fucking tongue wiggle,
like he was pretending to get intimate with her. It was like, that scarred me. Yeah, you're a 50-year-old man.
The people that come out to Ferntree Gully for a wrestling show,
you get all sorts.
Yeah, I wanted to point out specifically, I make sure to complain about things on the show quite a bit, so this show, I didn't know how far out of Melbourne it was. It's advertised on the docket as Melbourne.
Yeah.
Right? And then I see it's Ferntree Gully. And I didn't know how far Ferntree Gully was from Melbourne, but if I was going to catch a train there from Melbourne, it was going to be a fucking hour and a half.
And that was to get to a train station, not actually to the venue, which you probably would have had to catch an Uber. Because there's probably no public transport to this venue.
So we ended up, thankfully, getting Ben's work car and driving from his house. Still took us like 45 minutes from Cheltenham, lovely Cheltenham, Melbourne. But yeah, so we get there, and then it was a bit of a weird kind of like, what is this? Like, it looked like sort of a group of shops. Yeah. Like,
it just seemed like one of those little type...
Like there's a hardware store, there's like a gym.
Yeah, that makes up your little town of shops.
Yeah.
You have your Aussie Disposal, you have your gym, You have your hardware, although it didn't really have any food, which was...
Yeah, could have done with some food. But anyway, so we get through the car park and then we're like, is this even the right place? And then it's like tucked in the corner.
Because as usual, we were rocking up as it was supposed to be starting. It is our thing.
We had like a good 2 minutes like buffer.
Yeah.
I thought we did pretty well.
If we're making the first match, we're doing really well with ourselves.
Yeah, definitely.
9 times out of 10, if you're that first match, we will not make it. Which, lucky we did actually make the first match because it was quite a good tag.
Yeah, the first match on the fucking night. Show was Flamita and Bandito against SCU. Yeah, fuck. If we had missed that, I would have been quite salty.
That was probably in the top couple of matches for the 2 shows. It had everything.
Yeah, it was a great match.
It had your classic SCU entrance.
Yep.
Which...
most over-theme music.
Oh, I fucking love that. And even when it just topped it off when you see on the second night, they've actually got their own T-shirts they've actually personally made up for Australia.
Yeah, so what's their catchphrase? This is the worst town I've ever been to.
This is the worst effing town, isn't it?
I think it's just worst town. I don't think they go too dirty with it.
No, that was just with Brian Cage, effing machine. That's
yeah.
Where I was confused.
But yeah, they had like the Australian flag like inset in the text of the shirt. I was quite impressed by the effort that they went to for this. But yeah, it was a good match. Like it was not too long. It was probably like what, 12, 15?
That's what I thought, about 15 minutes, and they seemed on both nights they were probably the top. They gave those 4 guys
just so polished.
Teams,
like you watch the rest of the guys on the card, and then you watch like SCU or like Flamita and Bandito, and it's like there's a level of polish that you just like, these guys are fucking good.
It's like they're not missing those finer details that makes a good match.
Yeah.
They're not missing a fucking punch. They're not coming up short or frigging...
Yeah, it's not looking like clumsy. It's not looking like, oh, what are we going to do before we get to our next
There's no just almost like, I've used everything I know how to do. I don't know what to do next.
Yeah.
Which you sort of could see a couple of times here and there in some of the couple other matches.
Yeah.
Or your missed moves, which Chaz has seemed to do quite a few of.
Yeah, just like really, what we call it whiffing it down here in Australia. But yeah, some of the stuff was either very soft or you know, a bit off.
It just like there's a couple second delay in what she's actually done.
Yeah, for real. So that was a really good match to open it up. But yeah, I did want to make sure to call attention to, despite this venue being in the fucking middle of nowhere, Ferntree Gully, it was actually fucking really nice. Yeah, it was like a smallish venue, like 400 capacity probably, but it had like nice stands, really professional lighting. Like it was like a purpose-built wrestling venue.
It did seem one of the nice little venues, set up perfectly to show off the show.
Yeah, and like for Australian wrestling, drawing like 400 people was pretty good overall.
Especially when you're travelling an hour out of the city, it's
now pretty pricey tickets as well.
No, very nice seats we got.
Yeah, we'll run the first rises on the second night, and on the first night was second row, which we bought the cheapest tickets possible, and then I think we got bumped up.
Which actually, the grandstand seats, second row, I reckon were better.
Yeah, that little bit of elevation.
Elevation, looking down and seeing more of the match, and sort of looking up and having to see, sort of missing a few things here and there.
Yeah. Also, props to the canteen area for both selling cheap, shitty beer. Go home to VB, nothing wrong with that. For I think $7, that was all right. But more so, accepting card. Fucking, I did not expect that in my local indie wrestling.
But did you miss your 4X? You've been a Queenslander now.
You
were born in Melbourne, but been a Queenslander for like 20 years now.
I have warmed to the beautiful shittiness of 4X as well.
The bogan's coming out in you.
Yeah.
The redneck.
Well, I think either way, like if you go on VB or 4X, you're a pretty hard out bogan. Yeah. It's just whether you're a northern bogan or a southern bogan. Yeah.
Your dad would be proud.
But I think I waste enough money on like expensive craft beer to where I can claim that I'm drinking this bogan beer ironically. Yeah. So that's okay. But yeah, any other standouts? Like to me, the best match of the whole 2 shows was on night 1. It was like a PWG All-Star fucking match. It was like Marty Skrull and Brody King as Villain Enterprises. What? No, not the main event. No, that was my favourite match of the show.
I thought you liked the Christopher Daniels Robbie Eagles.
I like that a lot, but I think I liked this tag even better. So yeah, Villain Enterprises, Marty Skrull and Brody King against it was Brian Cage and I'm looking this up as we speak, and Adam Brooks. Yeah, Brooksy.
Yeah.
So like all former PWG guys, probably in the last 12 months, I feel like seen all of those guys there, maybe a little bit more, but still, I thought it was bloody fantastic.
No, that was definitely my favourite match of the night.
Brody King was so impressive. Like, he's getting over, too, to, like, this crowd, because last tour I heard they were like, oh, who's this guy this time?
No, the moves he was capable of doing at his size is, like, makes you just think it.
And he has, like, a big man presence to him as well. He's not like one of these big guys that's like, all right, I'm big, but I'm going to just do flippy shit to kind of, like, get over. Yeah. It's like, he does the flippy shit. But it's like
based on the big man shit.
Yeah.
Just the tops it off. Just the finishing touches where he does what do you call it?
He did some crazy shit. I can't even remember half the crazy shit that he did, but it was like
cannonball outside.
Possibly. He also had like a really great like opening like arm drag shit sequence with Brian Cage where they basically did like a lucha spot. It was pretty awesome. But yeah, that was fantastic. But then the other one that was like, I was like, it's either that or this. My other match of the weekend was the main event with Christopher Daniels against Robbie Eagles. And this like got me in the feels because it was like, you know, I was telling you, Ben, like how long ago it was like the first time I started watching Christopher Daniels. We both would watch those like ROH shows back in the day.
Well, 16 years ago.
Yeah. And then like TNA, you know, we were both fans of TNA going up through their good early days era.
Where he was having his great match with Samoa Joe and AJ Styles.
It
was some good times back then.
Yeah, I've loved Fallen Angel, Christopher Daniels for so long, and then like getting to see him now, you know, at the tail end of his career.
But he's still pulling off that same shit he was doing back then. That's the insane shit about it.
It like gets back to that polish, right? Because it's like this is a great thing, like comparing a Christopher Daniels match to like comparing some of that other stuff that we saw on the shows, and like just the level of just a complete fucking worker and like professional in every way. Like he was covering up little things that Robbie may have like missed here or there or whatever. Or I saw there were bits where he was like calling stuff to Robbie, but like in a really much more subtle way than most of the guys were talking to one another through the show. Like he's fucking just supreme worker, hey.
And even if it's just in front of 200 or 300 people, he treats it as if it's a big show.
Yeah.
The way he performs, he doesn't leave anything out.
This was like the quality of like top caliber, like during last year when you'd have like a big time like pay-per-view match in ROH. Yeah. Like he was just getting to see him in a spotlight, like singles main event position at this age, like, and just to see that he can still fucking go as well as he can was like really kind of special for me. And it was like the perfect dynamic as well, like between the heel face thing. Remind me a lot of like your sort of classic kind of Ric Flair title defenses where he's just kind of like carrying these. I mean, not to say Robbie's a fucking schmuck, but
just the inexperience compared to Christopher Daniels and what he's capable of.
I mean, Robbie's fucking great. I've said before, I love Robbie. He's like probably the top. We were saying it's definitely either Robbie or Brooksy is the top Australian that's going today. But yeah, just to see how well that worked with like perfect white meat baby face Robbie to Chris Daniels' heel.
The heel that you love though.
Yeah.
It's the way he's able to interact. You can't hate him, even if he's a heel. He's just you backing him.
And like the working the body part thing as well. Like he worked Robbie's back like through the match and was like real consistent with it. Had callbacks to it. Like Ben was a little bit sleepy during this match, I want to point out.
Not because of the match itself. I've just been up early because of work, and it just, let's just say by 10:30, I was waning in and out of little head bob here or there.
Yep, there was a bit of head bob, I saw that.
I did see the great finish of the match, but some of the finer details I did miss, which was quite disappointing considering it was up in the top 2 matches for the weekend.
Yep. Yeah, this probably didn't go to the ring till like 10:30 maybe?
Yeah, because of 15 minute
this was a
intermission
long ass intermission.
That went to, I'd swear it was nearly 40 minutes, 40 minutes at least. It's like, I walked down the servo, grab a drink, get back, it's like, oh, yeah, should be right to go.
We had like another 20 minutes.
It's like, okay.
I did want to call attention, they had this gimmick during intermission where people could buy raffle
Janus.
tickets to get Janus, which is Abyss's spiky fucking wood
Piece of timber.
gimmick that he used in TNA all those days ago. So they gave the implication this is the same one, basically, right? I mean, they didn't specifically outright say, but that was definitely the...
Yeah, for 2 nights in a row for 2 different Janus. I swear I just saw you give away Janus Friday night, but you're giving away another one Saturday night.
Great hustle, guys.
I'm just
Great
intrigued
hustle.
how he just managed to get Janus through customs.
Yeah, that was...
Like,
I didn't think about that. How you get a fucking spiky
traveling,
nail piece of wood through customs?
It's got 12 fucking big ass fucking nails that when a bit through it, the second night it's like, this is getting stuck in that ring.
Yeah, that fucked up the canvas a little bit. We giggled at that.
And it's like, hey, entertaining.
Yeah. So, yeah, I thought overall it was really good. There was also a really good intergender match with Jordan Grace and Joey Ryan, night 1, that I thought was like perfect for what it was.
Joey in his finest.
Yeah, anything else that really stood out to you, like good or bad?
Oh, I did like the musical chairs on the start of night.
Oh yeah, they started night 2. So Flip was injured, so he kind of like did non-wrestling stuff. But yeah, so night 2 they did musical chairs, and
which was fucking hilarious.
The best part though, they did it to the Tequila song, because Flamita and Bandito are in this musical chairs.
But the best part was when they kept, every time it started a new round, they started with a flossing.
Yeah, you got. Like, we know how Bandito and Flamita Mexa Bloods have to do their flossing.
So you had Flamita, Bandito, Marty Skull,
you
had Brody King watching, you had Flip Gordon.
Brody King got eliminated right away because he just refused to sit down. It was perfect.
And gave the crowd the finger.
Yeah.
And you had a special guest, is it Mesa?
Fat Ass Massa from the Being the Elite show. Yeah. He was there.
Yeah. And then you proceeded to see them. It was just, I don't know how to describe it. It was just fucking funny. It was great. I mean, it just went as musical chairs goes, but there was different tensions going on. We had a bit of a program between Marty and Massa throughout. Yeah. And the way Marty eliminated by just friggin' pushing him like he was going to try and
fuck Massa off.
Trying to throw him out of the ring almost. It's like, okay, Marty really wants to win. He did make a thing saying, well, if we're going to do it, I'm going to win it. Massa
looked so sad when he got eliminated too.
But he did last longer than Flip.
Yeah.
Flip tried to jump on Massa's lap, and
I think Flip's speed and agility in the musical chairs was hampered by his injured knee.
He proceeded to get eliminated first. Second actually, after Brody, who was technically involved but technically did not participate.
Yeah, and then the big final one came down to Bandito and Marty Skull. A very heated round.
But Marty got a little carried away with the dance.
Yeah, Marty originally didn't want any part of this.
Which made it even all the more funnier.
Yeah, and then he just you get into the music. Tequila's a great song. And then, he ends up getting a little bit of the jive dancing going on.
And then he proceeds to keep on dancing as he's losing.
Yep.
And did not take that well.
Yep. So Bandito won the musical chairs, but then we got the lead into probably the other match I thought was definitely the best match of night 2. One of the best matches of the whole weekend. Marty Skull and Bandito. That was so good. If anything, I wish it could have gone a bit longer. But that could be said about a lot of the matches on night 2.
Night 2 did seem to cut quite a few around that 10 to 12 minute time frame. It didn't seem to have too many longer than that.
And I guess opening matches, you're not meant to go all out 25 minutes, just kill it, do a main event thing, and then Howard Robbie and Slet's going to follow that in the main event.
Okay, if that first one is too long, too big, it can sort of take the life out of the crowd. It's a lot to live up to sometimes.
It is. But no, I thought that was really fun match. That seeing Bandito's what is it, the Millennium Plex thing where he does the roll over their back springboard back into the German suplex. It's pretty.
Yeah, I don't know how else to describe it. It was just beautiful to see.
Yeah. And Marty put over Bandito in the match. Bandito was the victor. So I guess that means that in the future, Flamita and Bandito are in line for a tag title shot for the WSW tag titles against Villain Enterprises now. That could be good.
Definitely could be a match.
Yeah. So do you think, so all said and done, you think next time you'll be going along to another show if I'm not coming down, or?
Oh, it definitely didn't disappoint. So I'd be inclined to go to another show. Just Frederick Gully is a long way to.
It is. If we didn't have your work car, I think it would have made for quite a long evening.
Yeah. Especially trying to find your way home at 11:15 is from that side of town is it's only Uber.
Yep.
It's public transport. Not going that late.
But to close the segment, I wanted to make sure I give props to your brother's awesome pizza. So Ben's brother Josh is a bit of a pizza extraordinaire. Yeah. He's got his pizzas going, Little Alan's Pizza.
Yeah, pizza, yeah.
And he made us a home cooked pizza yesterday, and so we were able to have it for dinner prior to the show. But then after the show, leftover this pizza was just like 5-star to me. I was telling Ben, I think it officially replaces, maybe not replaces, on the same level of In-N-Out Burger following a wrestling show.
It was a nice bit of pulled pork on the pizza, and then the other was a nice, just the simple pepperoni, which does seem to be my favourite at the moment.
Yeah, you've done well. Simple pepperoni is like where it's at, I reckon.
It does. It doesn't disappoint.
Nice. All right. Well, that's us. Thanks for your contributions, Ben.
Yes, I'm glad I could come on the show.
Happy to have you on.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll go back to the main show where I'll probably be repeating this whole story to Jeremy. We'll see how we go. Thanks, guys.
All right, we're back. That was wonderful.
Man, I wish I could have been there. You guys sound like you're having such a good time.
Oh, yeah, the afterglow of this show was something else. And then the following day, I got to go to Underworld Wrestling in person, which was...
how was that?
Oh, dude, so good. Like, more so than the actual show, just the overall vibes of it. I'm so glad it was at Claw HQ rather than the pop-up venue it was meant to be, because I got to go through those gates, those cult gates. I got to go into they have a separate room before you go into the actual wrestling room, where it's like a pre-drinks room where they have the Claw cult happy hour. Where I got to enjoy wonderful cheap beer as well as Kool-Aid spiked with vodka.
I love that they actually had legitimate Kool-Aid at the cult. It's so fitting.
Oh, so great. And I already told you this, but for our listeners, then once we went into the actual wrestling room while we were warming up for the show, the claw of the cult came out during the warm-up to the show, all shrouded in their cloaks as they should be, led by none other than Mark Williamson, the claw leader himself. The fiendish one, and they were carrying a tray of shots of Kool-Aid with the vodka that they were prepared to give to any member of the audience that was prepared to completely give themselves on to the claw and sing out its praises in a public forum, which I gladly did. I was the first one to stand up and said, "Yes, sir, I will join this cult," and I fastly drank that Kool-Aid.
So
I hate vodka, but yeah, definitely. I'm easily convinced. That's all it takes to make me join a cult. So yeah, bloody wonderful time, and the wrestling was really fun as well. So great times. Would totally recommend to any of our Melbourne listeners, if we do have anyone in that neck of the wood, make sure you check out Underworld Wrestling. I had some other stuff I was originally going to talk about, but I think we've gone along enough. What do you think, sir?
Might as well carry that on to the next show if it's worth a darn. So, yeah. Hey, WrestleMania weekend is shaping up to be nice, is it not?
Oh, man, I'm so excited. I was just thinking about it this morning, actually. It was like all these shows we have coming up, and it's like there's a trepidatiousness to it, with the idea of so much wrestling we're going to watch, because I was honestly a little bit pooped after watching 3 wrestling shows in 3 days the other week in person.
Understood.
And we're going to be watching like 4 wrestling shows in one day, like 3 or 4 days in a row.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Oh, dear.
All right, well, we'll talk a little bit more about that on the next show. Let's go ahead and plug before we get out of here. What's all with the social suplex, Chris?
Oh, well, before the social suplex, you can find myself on the Instagram.
Oh, indeed.
You can find myself at Chris Things. A little bit of the artwork up there. I don't want to plug myself too hard after how awesome JediJackYeti was, but I like to think I do okay. You know, do some prints, do some bits and pieces, this, that, and the other. It's all fun. It's all fun. So check it out there. Also on the Twitter. Yeah, a bit of this and that. On the Twitter, I retweet funny shit. I enjoy it. At Chris Things as well.
And I am at Jaims Vanderbeek, at JAIMS Vanderbeek. Less art from me, unless you consider stupid photographs art. There's plenty of that.
I do.
And puns and jokes and all of that on both platforms. And if you're a wrestler or even somebody who just wants to make a shirt, hit me up. I'll help you out with that.
Do it. And you can also check out the show Twitter at Grown Man Pod, where you can get all the updates on when we'll have a next episode coming out. I don't know, we might end up doing an extra episode so we don't have to do one while we're in New York. Maybe.
Oh, or maybe one in New York.
Well, we'll definitely record some stuff in New York.
Okay.
But in terms of when it's going up, I don't want to have to actually edit and post something when we're there.
Facts.
Yeah. We'll see how we go. We'll keep you posted at Grown Men Pod. Also, like to thank our partners at Social Suplex Wrestling Podcast Network. A lot of other great shows on there. We have One Nation Radio, the Ricky and Clive Wrestling Show, Wilfred Watches, Omega Luke, the All Elite Show, Keeping It Strong Style. All of that at socialsuplex.com. Woo!
Oh, before we get out of here, one last thing. King Kong Bundy, everyone knows he passed away, rest in peace. Well, his cats, he had like 10 of them, and they're all up for adoption. I'm not sure if they're at a kill shelter or not, but they're all sitting there waiting for a forever home. I retweeted the link today, which is March the 21st. If you go on my timeline and scroll and see the thing, Jason Solo Monster posted it. So, yeah, if you want to or can help out and adopt one of King Kong Bundy's fucking cats, give it a go.
Do it. Do it. You can help a cat out in life. You can be a good cat owner, and you can also tell your friends, hey, I have King Kong Bundy's cat. You know, it's a win-win.
And you always give that cat till 5. You always get 5.
Awesome.
All right, thanks, guys.
Awesome, man. Thank you. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Zackson Zorn. Thank you. Oh, thanks, man.
Thank you, Courtney.
Yeah, thanks, Courtney. Fuck. All right, let's shut this baby down.
I gotta go eat, Chris.
Are you saying your closing show thing?
I said get swifty already. Should I say it again?
I wasn't paying attention.
Oh, this is awkward. So awkward. I meant I wanted to go get food. Get swifty. Our best hosted.
Yeah.
When the bird is